Searching for a cheap flight manually can be a mess. You're opening different tabs, searching through different dates, and comparing all the prices and times, all of this just to find a cheap flight. And I wanted an AI agent to do this for me, but it's not able to understand a page's inputs and gets blocked because of bot detection. So instead, I turned Claude into a full browser agent, so now it's able to see and interact on a page like Google Flights, and can do all of this searching for me without having to do it manually. And I did this with one setup command and one prompt to help me search for a flight. To set this up, all you need is a Browserless account, which is free to sign up. This allows Claude to get the infrastructure it needs to interact and navigate the web, while also bypassing bot detection. Here are the timestamps of what I'll be going through today, so feel free to skip to the timestamp that you'll need. Let's get started. Here's what we're building today. I used Claude as a browser agent to go to Google Flights and find me flight options from Toronto to New York on July 17th. I specifically wanted cheap flights, so I asked it to rank the top 3 cheapest flights it can find that day. And these are the options it gave me. From here, I can ask Claude for the link of where I can book an option for myself, or I can go a step further and use authenticated profiles to book this flight for me, which I'll talk more about in another video, which I'll link below. Now that we know what it does, I'll show you how I set this up. To start, we'll need a Claude account. I'll be using the Claude desktop app, which I'll also link below in the description if you want to download it as well. Now that we have it downloaded, I'm going to show you what it was like prompting Claude for the first time to look at Google Flights. So I have this copy and paste prompt here where I'm asking it to go to Google Flights, search from flights from Toronto to New York, and I want to fly out on July 17. So we'll run that and see what happens. Claude basically gets stuck. It says it can't render the Google Flights page because of the interactive elements that it has on it. So it ends up looking on these other sites like Kayak and Expedia and gives me this rough range of flight options, which isn't super helpful because I wanted to know exact flight information and cost. So let's change that. I'm going to use Browserless to help Claude become this browser agent so that it's able to go to Google Flights and searches for what I need this time. Before we connect, you'll also need a Browserless account. When you log in, you'll be on this account homepage. Here we're going to see the API key that we'll need. We're going to be copy and pasting this into Claude when we are setting up the Browserless connection. So keep this handy as we are setting up. Now, inside of the Claude desktop app, we're going to need to add the MCP connection by first going down to click our name, and we're going to go into our settings. Here, we're going to go look on the left and look for developer and click that. And this will open up a page called local MCP servers. And this is what we're going to use to connect to the Browserless MCP. Inside, we're going to click on the button that says edit config. And this will open up your Finder if you're on a Mac or File Explorer if you're on a Windows inside your Claude folder. Here we're going to see the Claude desktop config file highlighted. This is what we're going to be editing to add the Browserless MCP to. So we're going to have to right click and open this in our favorite code editor. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code to edit this file. And once you open up, you're going to see the file and an object inside of it. Here we're going to be adding MCP servers to it. And specifically, we're going to be adding the following lines. These lines can be copied from our documentation, which I'll also link below in the description. Inside of this object, we're going to see the text, your API token here. This is where we're going to be pasting the API token from the Browserless dashboard. So we're going to go back into that dashboard, press the copy button on the right, and then go back into our code editor and replace that text with our API key. Now all we need to do is save this file and close it. As well, you have to close Claude so that it can save those changes. So once it's reloaded, we're now done. We can now prompt Claude to look for a flight on Google Flights, all through just using the Browserless agent. I'm going to show you how I did it. Now that it's connected, I can now prompt Claude to find a cheap flight for me in July. I have this prompt ready, which I'll paste and share in the description below. It basically says to use the Browserless agent and says the same prompt I had before, which is to look for a flight from Toronto to New York on July 17th. I'm going to run that, and the agent is going to start opening up its own browser using the Browserless agent to navigate there. And now instead of Claude being stumped and not able to interact with the page, it's now able to fill out the fields like the origin, which is Toronto or YYZ, and the destination, which is going to be LGA at New York. And we can kind of see that the browserless agent is reasoning about while it's navigating the page. It's seeing things like the form input, how it's going to fill the details in for our request, and then search and extract those results. And if you're building this at scale, like hundreds of browser sessions or scraping from multiple regions, for example, or making a full automation workflow for your product, we can do that now with Browserless attached to Claude, since now it's capable of interacting, running concurrent sessions of these, residential proxies, stealth mode, much more that it needs to interact with the web. And here is the output. I can read through the different options it gave me. It looks like Air Canada at 6 a.m. is the most cheapest option, and I could further ask Claude to give me the link for this so I could book it. So that was my flight browser agent, all done by connecting the Browserless MCP to Claude. If you use other tools like Claude Code, for example, you can also connect the MCP there in one command. The full documentation will be linked below in the description. If you run into any issues or have any questions while you are building your agent, feel free to leave a comment below. Alongside, if you found this video useful or helpful, please leave a like and subscribe. My name is Chloe. I'm going to see you in the next one.